Welcome to the South.
The Confederacy is enduring the Civil War right now, but hopefully we will win and keep slavery going.
Unlike the North, we get by with our vast cotton production and fertile farmland.
Since the South has so much to offer to its citizens, we need slaves to do our jobs done quickly.
And to prevent slave owners from having to purchase indentured servants,
which is more expensive than purchasing slaves.
As stated previously, the Civil War is going on right now.
So we really are struggling during these harsh times.
But it's okay, because the South will definitely win.
Virginia, specifically the city of Richmond, has been a desired place to live since the Civil War began.
because after all, it is the capital of the Confederacy. Unfortunately, Richmond is experiencing issues with starvation.
Fatality.
The problem with starvation isn't the fact that we aren't physically producing enough food.
Our current problem is the Union blockade of Confederate ports, which is preventing foreign trade. The food that has been reaching Virginia hasn't been given to the city's citizens.
It is being given to Southern troops, which is causing
inhabitants who aren't engaged in the war to starve.
Are you okay? Do you want a hug?
No! I want chicken nuggets!
The minuscule amount of food that is reaching Richmond is extremely expensive, so the poor are unable to obtain food.
Because less people are buying food since they don't have access to it, the South's economy is disintegrating. Food items such as flour and bacon were 10 times more expensive during the time of the Richmond bread riots than they were in 1861, since food was in high demand.
Who wants a bacon strip?
Me, I get it myself, but I don't have some. Nom, 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 nom. It's bacon! I love you. I love bacon, I love you.
Are you tired of the Union blockade of Confederate ports?
Are you a hungry housewife who is not able to obtain food because you don't have access to it?
Well, look no further.
Join us on April 1st, 1863,
where we, female Confederate ordnance workers,
and the wives of the Richmond iron workers,
will be meeting here in Belvedere Hill Baptist Church. We will be discussing our city's massive food shortages
and construct a plan to be rid of Virginia's starvation issues.
You know, just girl stuff.
Every housewife who plans to participate in this cause,
we will be meeting tomorrow, April 2nd, in Capitol Square
to request a meeting with our governor, John L. Letcher.
The housewives went over to George Washington's statue in Capitol Square and then went to the governor's mansion. While at the mansion, the women were denied a meeting with John Letcher, so they marched over to 9th Street, Virginia's business district, attracting hundreds of citizens to participate in their cause.
Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces past and I'm homebound.
As the ride approached 9th Street, they chanted, "We celebrated our right to live. We are starving," while others chanted, "Bread or blood." They then attacked government warehouses and other commercial establishments, stealing food, clothing, and wagons, along with other items.
Bread or blood, bread or blood, bread or blood, bread or blood. Do you see any bread here?
Nope.
I do not see any bread here.
Nope. I'll just go and steal some jewelry instead.
Great idea.
He went to Jared. Jared has thousands of loose diamonds and hundreds of settings, so you can create your one-of-a-kind ring at Jared's.
After Mayor Joseph Mayo's failed attempt to stop the mob from causing any more trouble, John L. Letcher and the Confederate President Jefferson Davis showed up to try to quell the chaos. Eventually the madness ended that day, but that didn't stop other riots from appearing the next day, April 3rd, 1863. Andersonville Prison, which was considered to be one of the most notorious Confederate prisons during the time of the Civil War, was opened in February 1864 in Macon County, located in southwest Georgia. Its intended purpose was to decrease the amount of Northern prisoners in Richmond, Virginia's prison.
The prison was built using slave labor, and because the level of inflation for lumber, the construction of the barracks were delayed. Even though the building of the barracks postponed, this did not stop Southerners from still housing Union prisoners. The prisoners of war were forced to live outside, only with their makeshift shacks made out of scrap wood and blankets.
Nope, nopety, nope, 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 no.
Who's ready to open Andersonville Prison?
Excuse me, why are you opening up Andersonville Prison like this? Isn't this prison intended to house Union prisoners?
Well, yes, but...
Should we really be celebrating the fact that Union prisoners of war are being subject to harsh living conditions?
Well, yes, but...
Not to mention the high death rate. Do you know that Andersonville Prison will cause the deaths of 13,000 prisoners?
Fine, I give up. None of the things that you just said has happened.
When Andersonville was first opened, it had already lacked the amount of necessary supplies for the prisoners. Contrary to the 10,000 convicts that the prison was originally intended for, it quickly increased to more than 30,000 prisoners of war. Since the inmates were only provided with limited space to live and lacked their basic resources, they were surrounded by filth and insect contamination, which could have easily been prevented if the inmates had more space to live and didn't have to drink feces-contaminated water from the creek.
The prison had the highest mortality rate of any Civil War prison, with the deaths of 13,000 of the 45,000 prisoners who were sent there. Because of Andersonville Prison's lack of sanitation and its morality problems, it was closed 14 months after its original opening in May 1865. Jesse and Frank James were brothers who shared a common loyalty to the Confederacy. They grew up in the southern state of Missouri, which was a place known for guerrilla fighting during the Civil War. Jesse James was a Confederate guerrilla in the Civil War, which means that he harassed and sabotaged the North in an attempt to better the South's chances of winning the war. Frank James battled with the pro-secession Missouri State Guard at the beginning of the Civil War, but then, like Jesse, joined the Confederate guerrillas. At the end of the war, the Confederate guerrillas were forced to surrender, which brought the Union one step closer to victory. Even though the South had lost the Civil War, this did not stop Frank, Jesse, and 8 other men from continuing their lives of crime and violence. On February 13, 1866, the men robbed a bank in Liberty, Missouri, along with many other banks from Iowa to Alabama. Jesse James even became an important figure who was never disloyal to the South.
All in all, the Civil War greatly impacted the South because it led to the starvation of Southern citizens, since it blocked transportation of goods and resources.
As a result, citizens of Richmond conducted bread riots, which provoked fear and tension. Like the citizens of Richmond, the prisoners of war were sent to Andersonville Prison and suffered as a result of the war. Because of the lack of supplies and space, the prisoners were treated inhumanely, which led to disease and high mortality rates. When the Union won the Civil War, crime increased in the South. An example of the increased crime rates is Jesse and Frank James's bank robbing.
For better or worse, the Civil War not only impacted the South,
But it also changed the way people view our country today.
And that is when Imani Akula knew that she had messed up. Will she have to do that line again? Yes she will.